Hey everybody, it's Chase with AV Pop Culture again, and today we are here to talk about why 1994 just might be the best year in movie history. So pop that tape in, I got you, let's go do this. All right, so we are back with the third video in this ongoing series where I rank the 10 or 15, I haven't decided on the number yet, of what is considered to be the best years in movie history. And within those years, I put together a list of my top 25 movies from those years. And at the end of this series, we will take all of the years and do a video where I rank them and we find out once and for all just which year is the best in cinematic history. Today, it is 1994. Don't worry, if your year hasn't come up yet, you can check the first two. I'll try to link in the description for the first two episodes in this series. I did 1984 and 1985, and we have a lot more to do. So if your year hasn't come up yet, just hang tight because it might be on the way. All right, before we get started in this, I wanted to take a second to thank my first channel member who joined last night, Tyler P. Thank you so much for joining the Pop Culture friends and family. If you don't know, you can join the channel. You can, there are 3 different levels. It is Pop Culture Friends, Pop Culture Family, and Pop Culture Icons. And you get all kinds of great stuff. You get shout outs, all kinds of things. And it's just a lot of fun and gives us a little bit more chance to interact. I've enjoyed interacting with Tyler in the comments. I'm glad that he's found some of my recommendations and stuff like that fun. So thank you so much, Tyler, for joining the channel. One more little piece of business. The channel has been doing great. I really appreciate all of you out there and all of your support. I'm about 50 subscribers away from 1,500. And when we get to 1,500, I'm going to do a big show, a big video, and announce the giveaway. I've got some seriously big giveaways for when we hit 1,500 subscribers. And I'll tell you about how you got to get your entry in and all that kind of stuff to win. But this is not like a couple little things. These are things that you're really going to want, and you're really going to want to own in your collection and have. And it's just going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be my way of saying thank you. And so make sure that if you're not liked and subscribed, make sure you do that, because hopefully we hit 1,500 this week, and there's some really cool stuff, and we'll have that contest kind of going for 4 or 5 days, and then I'll do a live show, and we'll give away something extra to whoever's in the live stream. We'll pick somebody out of there. So lots of fun stuff. Make sure you like, subscribe, ring that bell. You're here for all of it, and be a part of the Pop Culture family. Pop Culture video, baby. All right, without any further delay, here is my top 25. I'm going to kind of move through these quick because there's 25 of them, and I don't have them on physical media. If I don't have them, I am trying to get them. I've said this before. I've lost some of them when I transferred over, when I had to get rid of all my VHS, but I'm on the hunt. All right, number 25. Now, remember, this is my list. Your list mileage may vary. Everybody's list's a little bit different, but overall, that's less important than the overall strength of the years in this series. So at number 25 on my list is a film that people recognize, that a lot of people have always liked more than me. It's heavy. It is violent. I am talking about Natural Born Killers. I'm sure a lot of people may have this higher up on their list. I was not ever the biggest fan of this movie. I mean, it's a good film, but it's heavy for me. I'm not going to pop Natural Born Killers on to have a good time. It is, basically a Bonnie and Clyde type situation. The killers are exploiting the mass media. And, of course, you got Woody Harrelson doing great in this. But while it definitely is on my list, adding to this year, comes in at top 25. It comes in at 25 on the top 25 because, I mean, I'm just not the biggest fan of something like that kind of heavy and violent to, pop in and have a good time. But it does add to the depth of 1994. Number 24 is one that's ridiculous good time. It's based on a video game, and I'm talking about Street Fighter. This is a game that I played tons in the arcade as a teenager, and so when this movie came out, and it had Jean-Claude Van Damme in it, and it had Raul Julia as M. Bison, and I believe this was Julia's last performance before he passed away. Just ridiculous, fun action movie based on a video game. Street Fighter, I enjoy it. Turn off your brain, have a good time. I will get Street Fighter comes in at number 24. Number 23, I'm just gonna say it's the Flintstones. I mean, seeing the Flintstones live action, and I should probably specify. This is all live action. For me, animation is separate. So all my lists are just live action. Otherwise, Lion King, I believe, came out in 94, and that would be, way up there because Lion King's a great movie with a great soundtrack. But animation, I keep separate. But the Flintstones was a live action with, John Candy and Rick Moranis, and Halle Berry was in this movie. A lot of fun. I think John Candy was perfect. I mean, John Candy. John Goodman was perfect as Fred Flintstone. And, Rick Moranis as Barney. A lot of fun seeing some of that stuff that you saw in cartoons come to life in a live action. So John Goodman and Rick Moranis as in Flintstones comes in at number 23. Number 22, there was a lot of comedies this year in 1994 that made my list, and this one is pretty iconic. Finkel is Einhorn. Einhorn is Finkel. I'm talking about Ace Ventura. Laces out! Dan Marino and his isotoner gloves. Quotable, ridiculous film. Got Tone Loc in there. You got Ace Ventura. Jim Carrey is Ace Ventura, hamming it up. It's just a lot of fun. People still know it today. It definitely adds to 1994, and it's not going to be the last time Jim Carrey is on this list. Now, next up is one that I have on physical media, and I have a better quality thanks to my boy Brian over at The Last Movie Standing. I am talking about My Father the Hero, starring Katherine Heigl and Gerard Depardieu. I have talked about this movie before, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it is a lot of fun. I think I'm about the same age as Katherine Heigl. My grandmother took me to see this movie. I was a young teenager, 14 or 15, I think, when it came out. And I think she's around that age, was around that age too. Maybe she might be a year or so older than me. But crazy movie. The Gerard Depardieu is her father. He just sees her as his little girl still. And she's, becoming a young woman, and she's growing up, and he's having a hard time dealing with that. She's kind of a brat about it. She actually tells the guy that she has a crush on that Gerard Depardieu's not her father, that he is her boyfriend, which is kind of weird. But and it shows her in a thong, which is also kind of weird because I think she was 16 in the movie. But I definitely remember seeing that because I was around the same age as her, and she was blonde and attractive. So it's a lot of fun, though. My Father the Hero. All right, at number 20, we go a lot more serious. I'm talking Joel Schumacher, John Grisham, The Client. So this is based on a Grisham novel. Stars Susan Sarandon, Tommy Lee Jones. I think it's Brad Renfro is the boy. He witnesses, I can't remember if it's a murder or whatever, but It's a John Grisham thriller novel, and it was a big hit when it came out. I'm more lukewarm on it, but I have it here because a little ahead of some of fun movies because it's a more serious film. It's, better shot, better, acted, the weight and the gravitas of it, and Schumacher. Really good movie. I haven't seen it in a long time. Deserves a rewatch from me. I love Tommy Lee Jones. And The Client comes in. It has to be on the list, the top 25 for 1994. It was such a hit and so popular. All right, number 19, we see Jim Carrey again, and I think this is probably my favorite film of his from this year, and that is The Mask. The Mask has a little bit of darkness to it. It stars a young Cameron Diaz, and she looked very different than beautiful. It's a lot of fun. The Mask, there's like a little bit of a horror element to that to me, a little bit of darkness in what The Mask brings out. Like, it brings out different things in the different wearers. And, of course, with the bad guy, it brings out a very mean darkness. But there's kind of some violent darkness to what it brings out in Jim Carrey's character, too. And it's just kind of there, kind of underlying a little bit, even though it transforms him into basically a cartoon character. But a lot of fun. I mean, smoking. Who doesn't know that? It definitely adds to this film. Jim Carrey had several films come out this year, but The Mask comes in at 19 on my list. Number 18 is one I don't hear talked about a lot. That is The Ref, starring Dennis Leary and Kevin Spacey. And this movie is absolutely hilarious. Dennis Leary is great. He's like he's a professional thief, a burglar. He breaks into this house. I think it's on Christmas Eve night, and he comes into this very, very dysfunctional family. And over the course of the night, while he's holding them hostage and doing what he's planning to do, he almost becomes like a member of their family and their therapist, and helps them work through things to the point where, they actually care about him. And it is absolutely a funny movie. And Dennis Leary is great in it. He steals the show. Yes, Kevin Spacey is in it, the time when he was very popular, but I think Dennis Leary steals the show. The Ref is a lot of fun. It comes in at number 18 on my list in 1994. Number 17 is another movie that I don't hear talked about a lot. It stars Luke Perry, the late Luke Perry, and I'm talking about 8 Seconds. In this movie, Luke Perry it's based on a true story, and he plays bull rider Lane Frost. And it also stars Stephen Baldwin playing his best friend, Tuff Edeman. I think that's how you say his name. And it tells the story of Lane Frost becoming a championship, like one of the best bull riders ever. And then unfortunately, he's riding a bull and he gets thrown off, and the bull gourds him with his horn, and he dies from a broken rib that pierces his heart. And but it is a extremely well acted film, dramatic film. And it came out at a time when people thought of Luke Perry just only as Dylan McKay from 90210. And he gives a great turn in the movie. And the movie is more sad because at the end, he portrays Lane Frost, who passes away. And Lane Frost had this iconic way that he waved goodbye. And it shows Luke Perry waving like that at the end of the movie. And then when he passed away in real life recently, I see that, and it's very sad. And, kind of tugs at you a little bit, but it is a really, really good movie. 8 Seconds if you haven't seen it. All right, number 16 changes gears completely. We got another Van Damme movie here. This is a sci-fi film. I just personally enjoy time travel movies and sci-fi, and then you throw in Van Damme. I am talking about Time Cop. And if you haven't seen this movie, it's exactly what he says. It's exactly what he is he's a time cop. It's the future, and time travel has been invented. And so they have to have cops that police people to stop them from going back in time and changing things. So if somebody's breaking a law by going in the past trying to change something, they send a time cop to set it right, to keep the timelines set correctly. It brings in some interesting quantum physics and stuff like that about matter occupying the same space and time, all kinds of stuff. But it is fun. It's a Van Damme action movie with sci-fi thrown in, and I just have a lot of fun with Time Cop. So it comes in at number 16 on my list. Okay, get ready for the top 15. All right, top 15, here we go. Number 15 on my list is one you guys have seen me talk about on films that, awesome films that you haven't seen or maybe that you've forgotten. I'll try to link that in the description. I am talking about The Cowboy Way. This stars Woody Harrelson and Kiefer Sutherland. Ernie Hudson's also in this movie. But they are cowboys from Texas, and they've never been to the big city or anything. And the guy that sort of helped raise them and teach them to be cowboys, he's from Mexico, and he pays somebody basically smuggle his daughter in to the country, but she's being held in New York City and kind of like used for forced labor. And he goes to try to get her out and disappears. And so Kiefer Sutherland and Woody Harrelson go to New York City. They drive their old beat up truck. They go to New York City to try to rescue them. And they basically are on the case. They're working with the cops. Ernie Hudson is a police officer. And, it's kind of like a fish out of water thing, but it's also got a little bit of Lethal Weapon in it, a little bit of comedy in it. They're ridiculous situations because, especially with Woody Harrelson's character, who's really kind of like backwoods, and he's in the big city, and it's a lot of fun. I talk about it a lot more in that video, but check it out if you haven't seen The Cowboy Way. Kiefer Sutherland and Woody Harrelson were definitely heavy hitters in 1994, so it brings a lot to this year. All right, number 14 on the list is one that's a comedy that stars another couple of heavy hitters around the mid-90s here, 1994. And I'm talking about The Chase with Christy Swanson and Charlie Sheen. And it sort of capitalizes on, from around this time period, a couple of years before, the televised chase of O.J. Simpson and the white Bronco. Charlie Sheen is a wrongfully accused guy who breaks out of jail. I can't remember exactly how that happens, but he runs, and he grabs Christy Swanson in a convenience store. She's a little spoiled rich girl. He's kind of holding her captive, and over the time during the movie, as there being a televised chase ensues, they kind of like fall in love, and that's kind of fun. And I've gotten to know Christy personally, and talk to her, and I was helping her and her husband consider relocating to Georgia, and so it kind of adds a little bit to that for me. But it's fun movie. It requires some suspension of disbelief in certain moments because of like what can happen while you're in the middle of a high-speed chase. But it is very fun, and I think it's overlooked. But on my list of what makes 1994 great, you will find The Chase on my list. Okay, number 13 is going to be controversial because for a lot of you, this is probably going to be much higher. This is getting a 4K release. I don't have it. I've ordered the 4K. I'm waiting to get it. And I am talking about Brandon Lee starring as The Crow. Now, I'm going to admit, I was a teenager. I was not a huge fan of The Crow when it came out. I've gotten to like it more over the years, but it kind of carries that heavy weight because Brandon Lee died while filming this movie. And that kind of like adds depression on it a little bit. The movie's being redone with Bill Skarsgård playing the Crow, which is interesting. See how that goes. But I know a lot of people have this higher up on this list. It's definitely iconic for good reasons, and obviously one big, very bad reason. But it definitely adds to the weight and the depth of 1994. So The Crow comes in at number 13 on my list. Number 12 on my list is another sci-fi. I mean, I like sci-fi. I like sci-fi and horror. But I love Kurt Russell. And this is a Roland Emmerich film that also stars James Spader. I'm talking about Stargate. And I think, I can't remember if Kurt Russell I think he had just come off doing Tombstone when he went to Stargate. Interesting thing about, there's a few films, the Tombstone and Jurassic Park and Three Musketeers and a few other films that are from 1993 that were so big that they still appear on 1994's like top 25 box office films. So that was, as I was putting my list together, I was like, wait, Jurassic Park's not 1994, it's 1993, but it still shows up in like the top 15 of 1994's box office list. So does Tombstone, and a couple of other films from 1993, because they were so big, they carried over into 1994. That's not something you see nowadays. Just a little aside there. But Stargate is kind of like the Ancient Aliens TV show idea. They find a artifact that in Egypt that opens a pathway across interstellar space to another space and time to another civilization that basically worships the god Ra. They're kind of like the ancient Egyptians. So it's basically Ancient Aliens theory. And I mean, I enjoy Stargate. Kurt Russell, I love. So Stargate, and it's definitely an iconic sci-fi film from 1994. It makes my list at number 12. Number 11 is one that I have, and I am talking about Interview with the Vampire. I still have the old DVD snapper case. Nothing wrong with that. This is Anne Rice's novel, based on Anne Rice's novel. And I mean, it's an overly romanticized version of vampires. You got Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Christian Slater, Antonio Banderas, and all of those guys doing a great job. But you really have Kirsten Dunst, who steals the show in this. She's the little girl that they make a vampire, and she's very brutal. And I mean, she just bursts onto the scene in a big way with this film. I actually enjoy, I'm a Brad Pitt fan, but I actually enjoyed Tom Cruise better in this movie because I think he's just like kind of really fun evil, and Brad Pitt is like overly kind of like whiny and broody a little bit. But it is a good movie. I enjoy the movie. It's definitely iconic. It has to be on the list for 1994. And it comes in at, what was it? Number 11 on my list. So if that was number 11, we have the top 10 left, my top 10, and it is coming. Let's get ready for the top 10. All right, at number 10 on my list is one that I also don't hear talked about a lot. It's a Mel Gibson movie. Also stars Jodie Foster and James Garner. And it has a lot of cameos that are a lot of fun. I am talking about Maverick. I remember seeing this in the movie theater, went and saw it with my dad. It's kind of like a Western for people that don't like Westerns. It's more of a comedy and action. And Mel Gibson plays a great poker player, Brett Maverick. And honestly, I believe James Garner played Maverick before, so this is sort of like a remake. I can't remember if it's of a TV show or a movie, but James Garner was the original Maverick, and he plays his dad. There is a great scene where Mel Gibson stumbles into a bank robbery, and I think it's like Corey Feldman is one of the bank robbers, but the other one is wearing a mask, and Mel Gibson pulls his mask down, and it's Danny Glover. And they're staring at each other back and forth and like shaking it off. It's like the whole like, do I know you thing? Lethal Weapon. And it's just a lot of fun. There's a good soundtrack. Clint Black, country singer, is in the movie, and he does a lot of the soundtrack. There's a lot of other cameos in the film, especially as it builds towards this big $500,000 poker tournament at the end of the movie. And just a lot of fun. I enjoy Maverick, very often overlooked, and it comes in here at number 10 on my list. Number 9 is a movie that just came in my top 10 best werewolf films of all time, and I'll try to link that down in the description as well. And I am talking about the Jack Nicholson, Michelle Pfeiffer, James Spader movie. Spader all over the place in 94. I am talking about Wolf. Now, to me, I think this one is an overlooked werewolf film. It's really good. I mean, obviously, you have seriously good actors taking this seriously. When you talk about Jack Nicholson and Michelle Pfeiffer and James Spader. And then to me, I think it's one that portrays werewolves the most realistically. Jack Nicholson gets bit by a wolf. He's sort of like an aging copywriter, and I think he's a copywriter or publisher or whatever. And James Spader is the young up and coming like D-bag that's trying to take his job and be the new alpha male. Well, once he gets bit, Jack Nicholson becomes a real alpha male. His senses get enhanced. His strength gets enhanced. His sexual magnetism and prowess gets enhanced. And then when it shows him turn into a werewolf, it's closer to like the original Wolfman, but even less than that. He never transforms into a full lycanthrope or anything like that. He just gets the teeth and the ears and more hair and fingernails and stuff. But it just seems way more realistic and very taken seriously by these actors, which is super cool. And there's some great fight sequences in this, especially at the end between James Spader and Jack Nicholson. Wolf, overlooked. It was in my top 10 werewolf movies, and it is number 9 for 1994. Coming in at number 8 is one that I actually have. Hold on one second. All right, I actually do have this one. I forgot to grab it. I have an old DVD copy. I'm talking Legends of the Fall. Obviously Brad Pitt again in another dramatic role, but this movie is loaded. Anthony Hopkins, Aidan Quinn. You also have Henry Thomas is in this movie. So, you know, like 10 years later after playing in E.T. And this is, I mean, it's a drama. It won the Academy Award. It's got it right here on the front for cinematography in 1994. So very relevant to this year. Brad Pitt's character in this is incredible. They go through all these, this family goes through all these different things, including fighting in World War I. And I mean, it's just, I mean, I guess you could say it's kind of a slice of life and historical period film. It says, you know, a passionate journey into the darkest secrets of love, betrayal, and the unbreakable bonds of blood. All three of the brothers are in love with Julia Ormond's character at some point or other in this film, and it kind of breaks the family apart, and there's these big sequences of historical stuff that happen. It is a beautifully shot film. I really enjoy it. It's not one that you're going to watch over and over all the time again for fun because it's heavy and it's really long, but it is a damn good movie. It has to be in here. The amount of cast that's in this, and it's an Academy Award winner for 1994. Legends of the Fall has to be here. Now, changing gears real hard from number 8 to number 7 is a movie that is probably my second favorite in a huge franchise and a movie that is well ahead of its time, in my opinion. And it was kind of the forerunner to Scream. And I am talking about Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This is, of course, a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. But this was like Wes Craven's run at a very meta like type movie a couple of years before Scream. The movie stars, you know, Robert Englund and Heather Langenkamp as themselves, but they experience the movie characters of like Freddy Krueger intruding onto their real life And I mean, it basically portrays Freddy Krueger, like Wes Craven goes deep here. It basically portrays Freddy Krueger as an embodiment of the devil, is what it hints to. And that evil has to be captured by writers and filmmakers in horror movies where good can defeat it, and but it can be appeased and kept alive in these films or in horror films in general. And if those start to die off and go away, the evil escapes into real life. So the stories have to be told in order to maintain the evil and keep it into it, which is supposed to be the reason that like we like horror movies and stuff like that. Wes Craven's in here as himself talking about that. So again, very meta. In some ways, I like it better than Scream. It did Scream better than Scream as far as the meta version in some ways. I really like this movie a whole lot. It is darker. It's scarier. Very, very good movie. Great entry to this franchise. Ahead of its time. Doesn't get enough credit. And honestly think this gave birth to Scream. All right. At number 6 is a movie that spawned a franchise. And 30 some odd years later, they're still making TV shows about this. Everybody's seen this movie. I am talking about Tim Allen and the Santa Claus. Of course, this is a Christmas movie. Tim Allen begrudgingly gets suckered into becoming Santa Claus with the claws once he puts on the suit after Santa falls off his roof. And we won't get into why nobody seems to give a shit about why the other Santa Claus dies. I guess it's irrelevant. But this movie, like I said, it spawned a franchise. My dad took me to see this movie. I was 14. I guess I was about to be 15 when this came out. We went and saw it together. He's a big movie fan. And all these years later, part 2, part 3, the TV show on Disney Plus has had a couple seasons. I think they're taking this year off, but they're going to do one final season of it. It's hard to argue that it is very important to 1994 as a year because it has so much staying power. Who doesn't love the Santa Claus? Tim Allen was great. I love the first night that he becomes Santa Claus and has to deliver the toys. That is absolute comic gold. The Santa Claus comes in at number 6 on my list for 1994. Okay, that leaves our top 5 to come from 1994 that will help convince you that maybe 1994 is the best, or at least one of the best years in movie history. Okay, our top 5. Coming in at 5 is one that maybe it's going to be higher for you guys, but it's another one that's kind of too heavy for me to put any higher. And I am talking about the Frank Darabont, Stephen King adaptation of The Shawshank Redemption. Tim Robbins, who hasn't seen that, where he crawls out a river of shit and comes out clean on the other side, that scene where he's standing there with his hands held open to heavens and it's raining. It is iconic. The Shawshank Redemption, again, though, very heavy. The damn guy that plays the warden in this movie is one of the down low key, most evil bastards in cinema history, and gets off on it. And but the movie is really good. I think the name of the short story is like something about Rita Hayworth with the secrets. I can't remember what the actual name of the short story was, but it's something to do with the poster that hangs over the hole that he digs out. I always think with movies like that, when people have to get through tight places or be pulled up or whatever to be saved, I think I'm screwed because I'm way too big for that. I would just be stuck. But it's a good movie. Morgan Freeman, obviously. Tim Robbins, just absolutely killing it. Shawshank Redemption, extremely iconic, has to be on the list, helping to carry some weight for 1994. All right, number 4. Here's where the controversy starts to come in, because I am sure a lot of you have this movie higher. This is one that I have got to get. I don't have it. This is one of the ones that's lost in my transfer over because I'm a massive Tarantino fan. I am talking about Pulp Fiction. Now, Pulp Fiction, I mean, I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger, and you will know my name is the Lord. I mean, Samuel L. Jackson just absolutely rocking it. You have John Travolta, you have Bruce Willis, you have Uma Thurman, you have Ving Rhames. I mean, it just goes on and on. And of course, like, this is one of those movies. Like, my wife hates how it's edited out of order and comes back together. I actually love that. It inspired me to kind of use something similar to that when I did my movie Creature Feature. Kind of wraps around and ties back together. I love it. I think it's creative. Pulp Fiction did it very well, in my opinion. You know, got Harvey Keitel in this movie. Quentin Tarantino's actually in the movie himself. You know, it is... What do you say? It's Tarantino. Great dialogue. Dialogue is one thing I've always been credited for by instructors and other people for writing well, because I write and I talk how people talk. And of course, I'm inspired by Tarantino, and he does it great. I love Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction comes in at number 4 on my list. It's definitely a big feather in the cap for 1994. All right, my top 3. Now, these, yeah. It's hard. I mean, honestly, with my top 5, it's kind of hard to argue one above the other. It's just a taste preference, and given the day, that could change. But number 3 is one of the better action films of all time, and Speed. Keanu Reeves. Keanu has been putting it down for a long time, because by the time he had done this, he had already been he had already done Bill and Ted like 5 years before this. You got Sandra Bullock in this movie. Speed is absolutely a great ride. You got Dennis Hopper playing the bad guy. I mean, it was pretty unique. I don't even want to think about how hard it was to like pull off this movie in such a confined space, no matter how you cheat it, being on a bus. I think Keanu Reeves is great in this. I actually think the opening sequence, like with the elevator and shit, is like underrated too. Really good movie. How, like, Speed is definitely on anybody's 1994 list. No way that it isn't. It adds a lot to this year. You know, people say, oh, Die Hard on a bus. But Speed has kind of like spawned its own kind of comparisons to movies after that, where people compare things to Speed. Not to the level of Die Hard, but Speed is a great movie. Love Keanu in this. Sandra Bullock. Speed. All right, the top 2. Number 2 is one that y'all bitch about the 4K of so much that I had to do a video about explaining why a lot of 4K reviews are wrong and get technical on you guys. And I got another one of those coming up about digitally shot films, but I am talking about True Lies. James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger again together. You got Bill Paxton in this movie. You got Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie. Tom Arnold. Jamie Lee Curtis is great. I absolutely love the scene where she's doing the strip tease and Arnold is pretending to be someone else, and he gets like so taken with what she's doing, he drops his tape recorder. I mean, just absolutely awesome. Bill Paxton. Love Bill Paxton. You know, he's in this movie. He's great. I know there's like complaints that like the movie's not immersive enough. Brian over my buddy, he mentioned that, and he's got a point. He's like, well, of course this isn't going to be able to be as immersive as Cameron's like Aliens movie, because that's in another world, in a spaceship, in a sci-fi world, and you get immersed into that world while you're watching it. This movie shot in like cities and suburbs and stuff that you recognize. So the immersive nature isn't going to be the same, but like the storytelling, the action and fun, and it's all there. I mean, you even got Charlton Heston popping up in this movie. There's some great stories. Like if you ever read Arnold's book, Total Recall, he talks about how he nearly died doing the stunt with the horse when the horse stops and doesn't go over the side. They're actually kind of elevated on that. And then the stunt guy almost died too doing that. So there is some definitely interesting things to this movie. True Lies, definitely a big part of what makes 1994 great. James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger, iconic. All right, that just leaves number one on our list. Take a big deep breath, because here it comes. Okay, number one on my list for 1994 is a film that sort of changed the way that we watch films in a lot of ways. It employed a lot of techniques that really hadn't been done, or at least done to like this level. And I'm talking about Forrest Gump. Tom Hanks starring. This movie, you got Robert Zemeckis directing. I've got the 4K on the way. It's got tons of extra features. One thing interesting I will tell you about this movie. I mean, come on, 6 Academy Awards, Best Picture, 1994. It's kind of hard to argue placing this at number one on the list. I mean, basically we see American history through the eyes of Forrest Gump, and the way he was injected into these iconic moments in history using archival footage and then like early CGI and stuff to put him in. Absolutely fantastic. Bubba Gump has become synonymous in with this film and been ubiquitous throughout our culture. Since then, it even spawned a restaurant. You got Bubba Gump restaurants. Just walked by one yesterday at Universal Orlando at the last day of my vacation, as a matter of fact. It is absolutely great. An interesting thing about this film, and I don't know if it'll get into it on the new making of features, but they did not want Tom Hanks for this movie. He had to convince them to let him be in the movie, and he did that by taking virtually no money up front to be in this movie. What he did take was points. So he gambled on himself, and boy, did he come out smelling like roses, because he has made a fortune off of this movie. Of course, they looked at, like, I think it was like Chevy Chase and Kurt Russell and several different actors. They didn't want him. He was considered a silly comedic actor. He had just done a couple years before a movie with a dog, Turner and Hooch, which I friggin' love. Turner and Hooch, by the way. But this was Tom Hanks back at Tom Hanks' finest, in my opinion. And this kind of exploded him out of just being that sort of comedic actor that we all think of. And you got Robin Wright in this movie. Michael T. Williamson. Is that how you say his name? I never can pronounce it right. As Bubba. And, of course, Gary Sinise in this as Lieutenant Dan. I was running. It's such a good movie. And being a history guy and a former history teacher, and Tom Hanks, Zemeckis, 6 Academy Awards, I dare you to argue that this can't be number one, and that this doesn't lift 1994 up into consideration for one of the best years of all time in cinematic history. Is it number one all time? I don't know. We're going to have to wait till we get to the end. Like, I know I left some movies off, like Philadelphia, Mighty Ducks 2, things like, all over the spectrum. No Dumb and Dumber on my list. It's not my favorite, but it is a big movie from that year. I believe it's 94 for Dumb and Dumber. So, you can argue back and forth, and that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to take like 10 or 12 years, maybe 15, and then in the final video, we're going to rank those years. I mean, at first glance, I could make an argument of 84 or 85 that I did first over 94, but 94 has some big swinging heavy hitters in there. So we'll see how it all shakes out at the end. Let me know your thoughts. What would you put in there? What would you have left out? And what years are you looking forward to? Maybe they're coming. Like I said, we still got plenty more to go before we get to that final video. But until next time, please like and subscribe, share this. It really does help out the channel. We're going to have that big 1,500 subscriber giveaway announcement coming soon. Some great stuff on there. Consider joining the channel. It only, like price of a cup of coffee. You can be a pop culture friend, family, icon, get all kinds of cool shit. But you don't have to do that to hang around. Just click that like, subscribe button, ring the bell, and, stay around, be part of the AV Pop Culture family. And until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.
I know.